Hi, everybody. Welcome to my channel. This is Nate, and I am delighted to welcome back Ness by popular demand.
Oh, I love that. Oh, hello everyone. We are back and we are going to talk about March's energies through astrology and then Nate through his psychic abilities and tarot.
Maybe we want to kind of introduce a little bit some of the topics we
Yeah.
have.
Yeah. So, folks, we're going to do something a little bit different. We actually, we're talking about March's astrology, but before we started, Nate and we narrowed in on the topics. We, I know a lot has happened this past weekend, especially folks if you're waking up and you're hearing a little bit about the news, about the weather, about the stock market, about Trump doing things abroad. This is the range of topics we're going to talk about. And we're hopefully going to cover all of them, and we might even cover additional topics. But this is our starting hypothesis of what we're going to talk about today.
And kind of in a kind of normal conversation fashion, we start with the weather.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And I'm here on the West Coast, so I was watching it right before I went to bed. And one thing I noticed right before bed, and I was kind of like, oh my gosh, this is getting really out of control, is 140,000 people were out of power last night. I think this morning it's now 60K. So 60,000 people are now without power, but that's a lot of people. And the type of weather event, it's okay for the power to go out maybe in a heat wave. Well, maybe not for a heat wave, but maybe when it's raining. But when it's cold, like you need the heat to kind of, heat up food,
Yeah,
heat up the house.
of course. And you need generators, and to get to those generators, you need gas, and
Yeah.
so on and so forth. And it's also the impact on the more vulnerable people. What about, hospitals and, nursing homes and children and babies and anyone, frankly? This is a big impact. And also kind of a second tier for the economy, for businesses as well. Particularly as, February, March are not necessarily in retail, at least kind of the slow season anyways. And
Hmm.
so it feels like it's a bit of a challenge. I don't know. We can do some cards just to see the recovery of
Yeah.
yeah.
Especially with the snow, like with the power outage, usually it takes a while for trucks to get to the location where they need to repair, if a tree fell on a power line or so there's a bit of a delay. It's not like they can go into it right now. So I'm curious about what you're pulling there. But I also want to say other things. They're expecting 2 more feet of snow today. So yeah, when I was looking at the weather last night, they expected most of it to kind of die down by noon today. And when I woke up this morning, they had pushed back all those deadlines to 9 p.m. So it's basically the storm is bigger than what people perceived it to be. And today they said 5,000 flights are canceled. So that's going to just push and spread out through the week in terms of those who are flying or those who are at the airport right now. It's going to be a bit more chaos. It's kind of like a Thanksgiving, Christmas type of holiday travel.
Yeah, from my cards, I certainly see the challenges with those swords, seven of swords, five of swords. Those are very problematic cards in terms of dealing with problems. The Eight of Pentacles deals with money, and so the economic impact. Good news though, the Magician, there's a recovery. It feels like there's a new energy. So I think we're not completely surprised by this reading. It's going to be very challenging, but it feels like the recovery will come once things get better. It might get really quick for
Hmm.
everything to
Hmm.
get back on their feet. That's how I feel.
Yeah,
Um,
even the travel bans. I think in New York they had said everyone to stay hunker down and don't leave the house. It made me think of COVID, when we had that at home requirement. And I think they weren't as conservative. They were more generous to set those travel bans in Virginia and Pennsylvania for those places that are infected. What makes me think of that magician card. They're being very strategic. They're thinking about all those things. And I learned a new term. I learned a term called heart attack snow. So I'm in California, folks. It doesn't snow that often, and this term is called heart attack snow. And I don't know if are you familiar with something like that in Portugal or in Europe? Heart attack snow.
but I am aware though that if you look at just without those storms, like
Yep.
cold is a very important factor in people's getting heart attacks.
Yes, yes. If it gets because your body, your heart, warms up your body with your circulatory system. Yeah. So heart attack snow is basically what you're saying. Yeah, Nate, that it's really cold. You're outside and you're shoveling snow, but the snow is so wet and so dense because it falls and then it melts and then it freezes. So you think you're just dealing with this light, fluffy snow, but it actually is heavier and deeper. And so you do more exertion to kind of clear it. And then the temperature is so cold that it leads to a lot of heart attacks. So, folks, if you can wait on shoveling, maybe you wait a couple days to have it soften a bit, because we want everyone to be safe. But one other thing too about this weather that the blizzard on New England area, the nor'easter, is the amount of snow in this short amount of time hasn't happened since 1978. So this is a real, dumping of snow in a very short amount of time for an area that just had, weather. I think it was snowing about 2 weeks ago, that big storm that, impacted 150 million people to Kentucky and, Ohio and Indiana.
Another kind of message here, looking at the magician, it reminded also of Mayor Mandami, in terms of how it's managing for New York, those situations. And I mean, obviously, I don't live there, but from the look of it, I get the sense like he's doing a pretty good job being very new on the job, very early on in his tenure. I feel like he seems to be having a hold of this that seems to, from the social media, of course, I don't know what it's like, but I get the feeling like he's doing a great job.
Yeah, these type of issues of natural disasters really works well with his style of leadership, of showing up for community, showing up for others. I looked at his chart and he has like double Cancer placements, double Libra placements, and double Virgo placements. And Cancers are very much nurturing, taking care of people, making sure people are emotionally, taken care of, they're healthy. Libras are about fairness, quality for all, very judicious. And then Virgos are about the details, working out, plans, making sure the management. So this is the perfect context for him. I don't think he, made it snow or anything like that or asked for it. But this is a great way for him to step into being a leader and show he's able to show up for his community. Yeah.
I think it's fantastic.
It's
If it
almost like a
actually,
divine setting thing?
well, obviously it's sad for people that are impacted by the storm,
Yeah.
but it does give him an opportunity to shine. Kind of, if you look at it the other way, COVID kind of revealed Trump's true colors in his ability to lead. You know,
Yeah, I remember I was here in Oakland and he didn't want a cruise ship. There were people sick on the cruise ship and he didn't want them to get off the cruise ship because then it would make the sick count in the US go up. So it was like the most ridiculous thing. He was stuck on the number, but they were like they were trapped on the
oh,
cruise ship I think for 3 extra days because of it. So it was
and I
like
remember when he didn't want to test people because the more you
oh
test, the more positives you have. I mean,
yeah, yeah. He's like, well, why are we testing? I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh, those are the days. I'm so glad we're not dealing with that anymore.
nothing. Uh, Kind of
Yeah.
transitioning from a theme of sheltering in place and
Yeah.
flights canceled, this leads us to the situation in Mexico, where a number of flights from the US and from other places actually going into Mexico have been canceled. A lot of people living in Mexico or visiting Mexico or on vacation in Mexico have to shelter in place. So I don't know for the viewers how much you are familiar with this situation, but basically the root of it is that Mexico is dealing with drug cartels and the assassination of the murder or the capture. I don't really know which way it went, but they got the top guy with the doing, involved in the drug cartels, and there seems to have created this vacuum of rebellions. And so we've seen cities like Guadalajara, Puerto Vallarta, that have been
Cancun.
Cancun. I didn't know Cancun.
Yeah,
Um,
Cancun was impacted. Yeah.
that
Yeah,
have
these are the
been,
photos, folks. Look at this. This is
yeah,
just like what they're dealing with. And these are multiple places burning. This is not just like one street. Yeah, it's chaos in terms of that area. Go ahead though.
Yes.
What were you going to say? Sorry.
Uh, no, I was waiting also to share that, for example, the a jail in Extapa has been broken up in terms of, yes, that's the reaction that I was hoping to get from you. Uh,
That's like a movie, like a Mel
yes, and
Gibson and
basically people have to shelter in place because the prisoners got out. And
oh
so
my
there's a number of
God.
prisons, particularly with Ixtapa, where, yeah, prisoners have been able to escape. And that is really, really, really scary.
Oh my God. So two places are sheltering in place. New England is sheltering in place because of a storm, and ma many cities in Mexico are sheltering in place because of this chaos. Yeah, I don't know if it was the US that went after this cartel or if, I can't quite folks feel free to put into the chat in terms of or the comments what it was, but basically, yeah, what you're saying, there's a power vacuum and now a bunch of groups are trying to seize power.
I believe, I mean, if we kind of look at the politics behind it, it feels pretty much certain that um, Trump and the US has put a lot of pressure on Mexico to deal with the drug cartels. And this is kind of the fallout of this situation. Kind of a side note too, is that there's also a lot of pressure going into Cuba at this moment,
Mm.
where Venezuela has stopped sending oil to Cuba, and also Mexico has agreed to also stop sending oil to Cuba. So, and it's not said, but it's likely due to US pressure. So maybe
To
a couple.
isolate Cuba more. So
Yeah.
interesting.
I wanted to ask the cards how much of this Mexico situation is created from Trump,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
from the Trump administration, and kind of asking the cards kind of what's next in this Mexico situation. People are really scared, of course, people living in Mexico, but I have a number of friends who travel, visit, live.
Yeah.
They're very worried, like if you are a shelter in place, there's no other way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even with
Any
COVID.
COVID.
Uh,
Uh,
oh, sorry, there's a
oh,
bit of an
sorry, there's a
echo.
bit of an echo.
I think you'll correct soon, folks. Okay, there we go. Even with COVID, I know a lot of people who had corporate jobs would remote work. They would live in
Mhm.
Mexico, they would go surfing, they would buy a house there, and then they would work, tech jobs in or corporate jobs in America remotely. And so I know a lot of people move there to retire. There's a basically the
Yeah,
past 5 years, there's a huge migration of Americans moving down to Mexico, and gentrifying certain areas. So they are really caught in the crosshairs with all of this.
I'm looking at the cards. This is just giving it all up. All right. So my question was, are the US involved in what's happening there? First card, the star, which obviously represents the
Oh,
US. So they're telling you right away that yes, the
yeah.
US. Is Trump involved? Well, I don't know. I got the devil, so I let you make your own conclusion. And and then what's next is the Four of Pentacles. Yes, there's
Mm,
definitely a sense of holding,
mm,
to hold the situation as best as possible. But it's
mhm,
interesting with the Pentacles. Is there also something to deal with money, the economy,
mhm,
finances?
mhm,
I feel like that's kind of interesting. Uh,
mhm,
one more card, the world. And it's interesting with this card, I feel like this movement of the US trying to continue with the Monroe Doctrine and
yeah.
trying to impose on the whole North American continent, whether it's Canada. And I think this is like, it's actually not the world, but it's actually more of a American
Re-
issue at the
Reshuffling.
continent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting. So this is a side effect of American policy. Like no doubt in terms of what the cards are saying. And it's interesting too, because if you see the US go after Venezuela, it could really inspire these groups to really go after. It's kind of like the FAFO. if Trump is F around and find out, it's very common in America. So if Trump is FAFO with Venezuela, what is to say these cartels won't do the same when they have the power vacuum? It's like the time to act. It's like, yeah,
It's the
very
same
interesting.
situation with, I mean, not the same, but similar situation with Venezuela. I agree with you.
Mm.
And it's just like the whole domino effect. That's what I'm seeing, like
Hmm.
visually, the whole domino effect. So think about it. Cuba is impacted, Venezuela, Mexico. I'm feeling Colombia might be next.
Hmm.
And then also kind of a side news, but it was more someone more on the very conservative side that was elected president of Costa Rica. We barely talked about it, but that was also in the not too long ago. So changes are going deep in
Yeah.
the American continent. We haven't seen Brazil yet, but that also something could happen. I just feel like something could happen in
Yeah.
relation to Brazil. There's elections this year in Brazil. That's kind of a big deal.
It's interesting too because I think you could even look at Trump being elected the second time is like a sea change. We're seeing, corporations have different power in a way they haven't. We're seeing people put into places of power that didn't have it. We're seeing the Epstein files, maybe coming out or not. So there is a sea change in America. We're also seeing Democratic candidates having a reshuffle in terms of, we're having Ro Khanna and Senator Macy, I can't remember his first name, but they're the ones doing the forefront of the Epstein files. They're the ones, pushing it. It's not, Hakeem Jeffries, it's not Mitch McConnell, it's these other, folks who don't have as much they're not as taken. They're not as corrupted so far as some of these other folks might have been with like Hakeem Jeffries or others that more institutionalized. And so it makes sense. We're having this. Why would not the Americas? It actually matches the astrology too. This whole paradigm shift we're in is old world order, new world order, old leadership, old habits, new. It's about the new emerging. And so we can be so silent in America, but it makes sense that Mexico and other Latin American countries are going through their own shuffle as well. So folks, keep that in mind when you travel there. Like keep in mind when you might have traveled to Costa Rica 4 years ago, or you might have traveled to Mexico a year ago. Just pay attention to the political situation where maybe you didn't have to think about that before. It was just like, oh, I'll just go. Why not? Yeah, very, very
It does
interesting.
not a kind of a hit here in terms of, I don't know why I heard this, being careful with Panama. I don't know why. I
Mm-hmm.
just heard Panama. So being careful in the situation with Panama. You mentioned nothing not related to this so much, but you mentioned Mitch McConnell, but his situation has been really, really catastrophic. I guess that's the best way to describe it. Like
Yeah,
I'm
I think there was a
he's able
okay.
to run. I mean, he can't even have a conversation.
No. There was a photo of him last week where I think someone was leading him walking and he was just holding onto their arm. Um, it's just this, it's both sides though. I think it was a Boxer or Barbara Feinstein. There was one Democratic
But,
senator who kind of held on. Um,
but
yeah, to the
I don't think she had really the episodes that
okay.
McConnell. I don't think it's comparable. But yeah, you were mentioning the astrology. Maybe that's a good side way to look into kind of what's coming. Yeah.
Yeah, let's look into that. What I'll do though, I'll do a folks, we still have a lot to cover. We're gonna cover, we call it Little Boy Andrew because we can't call him Prince Andrew anymore. We're gonna cover also, Nathe has a really cool thing about Trump and the UFO disclosure. He has not quite shared it with me, but he said it's worth paying attention to. We're also gonna touch lightly the Iran stock market. And then we're going to end just a check in with Nancy Guthrie and the Oscars. We're going to end on something light. But yeah, folks, I don't have a YouTube channel, but I have a newsletter. So if you pull out your phone and scan this, you're able to be added to my newsletter and you receive this whole presentation every month. So you're able to look at this at your leisure in terms of March's energies, or if you really want to look at Trump's energies, you could also do that. I also have a class on 3/3, March 3rd. I teach this class, a manifestation class with astrology, and I teach it twice, once in the morning, once in the evening, to cover people from different, time zones, people in Australia, people on the East Coast, people in Europe. And this class is really representative of me, where it's like I mix the woo-woo with kind of psychology and science. And so I'm not telling you to, oh, just fully embrace manifestation as like jump in with both feet. I kind of introduce it in a very scientific method. Like, let's just see if manifestation is real. What would you might do? And how do you create a separate track in your life just to experiment with it, as opposed to fully embrace it and then maybe be surprised in terms of what your experience. It's very smart in terms of how to incrementally add it. And so I have a class. I have room in both spots. Feel free if you want to there's an information in the description below to kind of register for that. It's a very detailed curriculum, very hands-on. You will receive this curriculum afterwards, and they are personalized worksheets. I think it's a 30-page personalized worksheet that allows you to work with the new moons, and you can also have this worksheet to move forward. 6 months from later, if you want to work with manifestation, the worksheet will help you. I also offer a signature paradigm shift reading. This is my unique reading about the times we're in, about Mexico, about Brazil, like we're having a whole new world order, about little boy Andrew leaving, the first royal in 400 years being arrested. We're in interesting times, so I can use astrology to explain that for you in your life, because there are some very benefic things happening, things working, coordinating, and there's an overall story that emerges when we look at your chart in terms of where you're moving away to and where you're moving towards. And then I'm going to be sharing a planetary path for March later. But when I do that, you can actually access your planetary path through my calendar. I have about 40 more calendars in my batch right now. And I'll open another batch in about 2 weeks or 4 weeks. But this calendar really gives you a sense of an overview each month of how to work with the new moon and full moon, but also it overlays it on top of your natal chart. So you're able to kind of unpack that. And if you're someone who never wants to learn about astrology, then this calendar is not right for you. But if you're someone that wants to start to learn astrology and start to add it more in your life in an actionable way, this is a great place to start. And I'm working on a booster video, as you're seeing right here, that's going to allow you to unpack it further. And I know you were, right before we started, Nathe, you were looking at your March in terms of your
Oh yeah,
energies.
I'm glad you're not opening up my chart in front of me. But thank you so much. I was actually using it, even though I wouldn't consider myself astrology savvy, but beginner enough to understand the basics. And so, yes, as I mentioned before, like I think it's been really interesting to because I think, we're all about our own lives as much as we are about the bigger purpose and the collective, what's going to happen to me. And so it is a great way to learn, because you get the benefit of learning by finding out what's going to happen, not to the world or the US, but actually to you.
Yep.
So it is very interesting. Um, I wanted to share on my own just that my magazine is still up for sale. There is a paper version. It's
Mhm.
$19.99 plus shipping, and then a $10. The cheapest version to get it is digital, and it's also good for the environment. And so this is the second episode. I also have a free class on YouTube, which is more about the August eclipse that's coming up. It is free.
Yes.
It is really not so much an astrology class. I wouldn't be qualified to do that, but more on the psychology of the shadow work. And so if you want to work on your shadow side, this is the right class for you. But I have to warn you, this is going to go very deep. Um,
Mhm.
Maybe
Mhm.
in places that you didn't really think you really want to go. But people seem to really enjoy it. So
Yep.
check it
I've-
out. You go on the playlist, and it's starting actually really gentle, but each
mhm.
month there's a class, and it's going to go deeper and deeper to face our issues. It's still time to start it. We'll go together over the 6 months. And if you're really out of phase in your life where you want to kind of work through a transformation process, then the beauty of it is you're doing it with other people, with someone that thinks they are able to gently hold your hand through the
Yeah.
process. So check it
Yeah,
out.
I think one thing about, and I heard really great things already from Lisa Foster, from goodness, they said really positive things about this eclipse series that you're doing. And one thing that's really nice is just the multiplier effect by people coming in community, by having someone witness your goal or hear you as you work together is such a multiplier effect. And I often say the separateness is a lie. Like we're meant to be working together and interconnected. And I just think that's so beautiful. And folks, there's no wrong with this eclipse series. There's just showing up, trying, and then just by being in community, you will go farther than if you were just on your own, like a little island. Yeah, I'm so glad you're offering this. Yeah.
Thank you. So talking about shadow work, we can transition to Andrew.
I know. I actually just updated it. So, folks, we're calling him Little Boy Andrew because I mistakenly called him Prince Andrew. And oh my goodness. Okay, so I have to tell you my little hits. So, my little hits is Fergie in particular is impacted. So, we're seeing Andrew, but Fergie is apparently hiding in Switzerland.
You got my
She's in
reaction.
she's hiding in Switzerland and she's hiding in this like $18,000 a day high-end wellness retreat. And I think and this is my own intuition, I think she's trying to make a case for herself of I was involved because I actually was a victim when I was a child, and I'm going to work on my issues and heal, and I'm going to therapy and kind of that redeeming kind of narrative. But I feel Fergie and Andrew are going to sing. They're going to sing like a canary. They're going to basically give a pathway where they can be the heroes of the situation, where they can name names, where they can kind of disclose. And I think Prince Andrew isn't really bright. Folks, if you've seen that BBC Emily Mathis interview that he did in 2019, I think November, he's not that bright. He can be easily brought,
Ooh,
kind of like Trump, where you could be manipulated. Prince Andrew could be conned. And then one other thing too, and then I'm curious about your hits with Andrew, is when the Queen was passing, summer of 2022, she didn't pass quite yet, but when she was getting ill, there was a changeover of properties. Prince William was about to move it to another location. The Eugenia and Fergie were not Eugenia, Eugenia and Beatrice were moving to another location. I think one of them moved into Prince Harry and Meghan's old property. But one thing is they asked Prince Andrew to vacate the Royal Lodge in 2022 to make room for Princess uh, Catherine and Prince William, and he said no. And so he said no. And so basically, Prince William and Kate had to move into the smaller house called the Adeline Cottage. And that's when Prince William had issues with his brother. And that's when Princess Catherine had cancer. And then they basically recently moved out just a couple months ago into another house that they're going to stay in until they're going to be king. And so they equate a lot of negative energy with that cottage that they had to move into. And so um, I feel Prince Andrew is stubborn. So as much as they're trying to convince him to be this hero, he's really digging his heels and this little boy, mentality until they really make him seem like he's a hero or he's gonna win. And I don't see a trial. I think he's just gonna blab. I think he's maybe gonna be exiled like Napoleon. But those are my hits. What are you getting, Nath?
oh wow. It needs to be saged, but that's
The Royal Lodge? Yes.
um I didn't get any specific hits. There's two things that really kind of got my attention, but didn't lead me to an intuition or psychic vision. I was really shocked that the police came on his birthday. It's just like I just feel like there's something very strange about it. And if it's leading me somewhere, it's leading me to it's not a coincidence. I think they did that on purpose.
Yeah, like to catch him in because they've tried to arrest him or file a subpoena to him many times and they couldn't, but they were able to catch him because it was his birthday.
And then also, and that the second piece I haven't really wrapped my head around it is the teddy bears that were found.
Oh, yes. This came up with Emily Mathis's interview, and I think there's a part of him that this is a bit of a persona on his. So, folks, if you're not familiar, if you watch the Emily Mathis interview from November 2019, they cover this, as well as the Scoop TV or the film on Netflix, and then there's an Amazon sh series as well. Um, he fills his bed with like 30 teddy bears and stuffed animals, and he
Should
lines them up.
Did we get a card on that? I feel like I just
I
can't.
I feel that, I mean, I think one thing with him and Queen Elizabeth is he tended to act childish. He tended to infantilize himself to kind of get out of culpability and blame. And I feel the teddy bears is an extension of that. Like, you can't really put too much on me because I have teddy bears on my bed, you know?
I got the High Priestess, and the High Priestess is mom, is the mom,
Yeah.
the moon energy, the mother, the figure
The maternalness of it. Yeah.
of it. It's also the High Priestess is also the secrets.
Yeah, I think that's the manipulation of it too. Like knowing you can. And one thing too, Nath, I watched The Crown. I'm very much versed about this royal situation, or I tried to be. And Queen Elizabeth had four children. She first had uh, Charles, and then Margaret, and then she basically had a 10-year break before she had Prince Edward and Andrew. And when she had her second, her third and fourth child, she was a lot more affectionate. She was a lot more doting on them because the first two, she was, they in that culture at the time, childhood was not, seen or heard. They were just like little people, little adults. And so Prince Andrew received a level of affection and maternalness that she didn't really get to express, or she wanted to, but she couldn't because she was also traveling a lot when Charles was a baby. So I think there's a bit of that, what you're picking up, that overly regret of I couldn't be a mother the way I wanted to be. So yeah.
Mhm. I don't have anything more on him. Like, plus also kind of disgusted by the whole thing.
Do you see him arrested? Do you see him exiled? What do you see the outcome for him? Do you want to pull cards on
Yeah,
that?
actually, it's interesting that he was arrested. The reason he was arrested was actually not for the trafficking or the abuse, but was for like the state secrets leaks. And I feel like I don't know how to say this. Obviously, the abuse stuff is horrible, and but the intuition I get is that don't underestimate the severity of the state secrets. I think
Yeah,
this
the
is it.
financial crimes.
I mean, those are two you can't even compare them.
Yeah.
Two very serious situations, but we tend to look to talk more about the Epstein, the girls, the
Yeah.
children, etc. But I think this piece and the business deals are actually kind of the other side of the coin, like the
Mhm.
shadow, if you will, of the eclipse here.
Yeah.
The part that is in the spotlight is the
Yeah.
abuse. The shadow, I think, is the business sides, the deals, the secrets. Epstein was very, very much getting information and giving and receiving information. I think from that standpoint, he's in huge trouble. And for some reason, I felt like he's more at risk with those issues, even
Yeah.
though they're both morally absolutely awful. But
Yeah.
that's what I'm getting.
Yeah, I want to pull out two things on what you said. One is there are different moral regarding, the abuse of so many women versus financial crimes in terms of the impact, the victims, it's very different. And I think also you're bringing up this point of what was all that used for? What was the abuse of women used for? Was for financial out gains and manipulation. So you're looking at almost like the outcome. What was the so what of why they did that? What was the end game for Epstein? But one thing that also happens a lot in the US, and we see with many different cases where people do really bad things, but they're often kind of nailed legally because of financial crimes. We saw it with Al Capone, this famous gangster in the US. He was eventually caught by tax evasion. We saw like even Diddy. and the Nixium cult that happened here in the United States. They both were caught because of the RICO case, which is like trafficking and business dealings. And so there's something with our culture. We have more established thinking about financial misgivings and leaking secrets. We're not quite there mature wise in terms of just violence against women and the impact there and getting the legal laws on the books to match that. Yeah.
And actually, if you really look at Trump's felonies, those felonies are finance related.
There you go. The 34 felonies.
And
Yeah.
even though there's the whole scope of things that he's
Yep.
done, and but what remains as a felony is those.
Those 34. Yes, very, very interesting. So after little boy Andrew,
We were,
we wanted to talk about your Trump UFO disclosure. Okay, go ahead and share that one. I'm curious what that one's about. Yes.
I don't think it's that big of a deal. I have been saying for a while now that um, the theme with Trump is always needs a new distraction, and he's running out of distraction. There's so many Maduros you can kidnap and capture in the world. And
Mhm.
so I really felt like
Mm.
this disclosure on UFOs is kind of the ultimate thing that he can pull out. And that was in his back. This is just my intuition. It's been in
Mhm.
his back pocket for a while. He would use this when he needed the most distraction. And it
Mm.
feels like this is coming to a head where I feel like he's going to talk more and more about UFOs and UAPs. And I feel like there will be mention of that in the State of the Union.
Oh wow, that's tomorrow. You think it's going to
Yeah.
he's gonna wow, wow. As a distraction.
Well, yeah, I know as crazy as it sounds, but I think he's going to use that in his State of the Union. And
Okay.
frankly, I mean, you have to recognize if this is true, that's a brilliant idea. If you want
Yep.
people
Yep.
to distract, I mean,
Yeah, and let me share something. So let's talk about the speech tomorrow and what we see there. So I similarly intuitively, I feel he's going to do something very theatrical. The reference point I think of is when Trump first time was president, his first term, and in one of his State of Union addresses, he had basically at the beginning of it, I believe, gave Rush Limbaugh the Medal of Freedom or something like that, and that was shocking for folks because was a lot. I think other things happened at that same State of the Union, maybe like who else was invited, and so I felt something like that. There's a bit of shock and awe, like distraction. So folks, as something happens tomorrow, just be careful of being hooked into it, because he wants you to be addicted. He wants you to, look at the other news that maybe he's getting you to not look at. So just be aware of that. And so I saw that, but I also want to share the astrology for the State of the Union. It's not good. It's not good at all. Let me just draw on this. So we see Mars, 25 degrees, is kind of loosely opposite his Mars. So he's feeling conflicted. He's feeling like he needs to fight. So he might be overly aggressive. He might do a little too much. When you're secure, you don't need to do as much, but when you're insecure, you can overcorrect a bit because you feel like it's not landing. And so that's happening, this opposition. We're also seeing Mercury here, which is, transiting Mercury, is basically squaring both his sun, his north node, kind of what his purpose is, and then also his moon. So he's feeling a little outside his comfort zone. His words don't feel like they're landing. He also might have trouble, like when he speaks, like maybe he might use the same word. He also might be super teleprompter. We saw that after the Supreme Court announcement on Friday. He basically read a speech and it wasn't like, any intonation. He wasn't going off the cuff. And so we might get a speech where he's completely reading a prompter and sounding like a zombie because there's something outside of his comfort zone with this. And then we also have Uranus squaring his Mars too, which is also going to be squaring Mars too. So we're seeing this moment here on both sides where Uranus is squaring both Marses. Sorry, I'm trying to draw that in a more elegant way. So he's kind of in a rock and a hard place. That's kind of the energy that we would see for him in terms of tomorrow. But what are you getting in terms of the speech besides this UFO disclosure, which, oh my gosh.
Well, when you were talking about all of this, I feel like the other part of the speech is the Democrats and the fact that what's going to happen there. I believe a lot of Democrats will not attend. There's also discussions about Epstein survivors being there.
Yes, I heard this that they might send either the Democrats won't attend or the Democrats will do their plus one as Democrat survivor Epstein survivors, or that they'll just send Epstein survivors in their place and there won't be any Democrats. So he's basically facing a room of people. Democrats, let me just type this in. Democrats not attending State of the Union. Let me just see what the current thought is on this. Um, oh yes, Senator Adam Schiff says he's going to skip. Um, yeah, so yeah, you're right. Some people are thinking about skipping this year. Do you think they're going to? What do the cards say? Do you see them skipping, or what does your intuition say?
I'm going to look at two groups of people here. The first
Yeah.
one is the Democrats, and then I was getting an idea of something else here. Okay, what will the Democrats do? Well, what will the Democrats do in Congress for the State of the Union? Democrats State of the Union.
And let me just I Googled some oh, go ahead.
No, no, no,
Go
go.
ahead. I was going to say I did Google some senators are sending Epstein survivors in their place. So it's not both of them attending, it's like in their place if they're not attending. It's not ubiquitous. It's not all the Democrat senators have said we're going to send Epstein or all are said they're not going to attend, but there's just a couple here and there. But go ahead. What were you pulling?
The Four of Pentacles, it's like holding something very tight to the chest. I feel it's almost like doing the bare minimum, maybe attending, but just very, very silent or bare attendance, like a
Hmm.
very limited attendance. Seven of Pentacles, it's also being bored. It's just looking at it, feeling very distant. I feel like Democrats are going to feel very distant from it. King of Swords could be, I don't think it's Trump. I think it could be, and I haven't looked at that, but it could be the rebuttal situation.
Yeah.
Um, the other group that I was just thinking about is just like an intuition. I could see Trump attacking the Supreme Court justice
Hmm.
during the speech because there's
Ooh.
Democrat and usually the Supreme Courts attend the speech as well
Yeah.
in the front row, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. In the
And
front row.
he's very upset with Supreme Court justice. I feel like there might be comments on Supreme Court justice. What am I getting? Back and forth articles, and that would tie with the tariffs. There might be, yeah, I feel like there might be some hits, there might be
Oh,
some
some
attacks.
jabs.
Jabs, thank you. That's the word I was looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like that would be really, it feels to me like it will be really poor choice.
Okay. Okay. Very interesting. There's even talks that the Supreme Court might not attend either. They might be officially disinvited by Trump. I know what a good sport. I also think it's interesting too because the King of Wands. I also got a little baby hit here where when I think it's Abigail, the Virginia governor, I believe. Apologies, folks, if it's the wrong governor. She's the one that just newly got elected. She's doing the rebuttal. But when Mandani was sworn in January and he had his speeches and his mantra for the city. I just remember like, oh, this is what it felt like when Obama was president, like that breath of progressive air thinking forward. And so I wonder if there's a bit of that with Abigail where you feel like she's talking about the economy, like where sometimes Trump says lies and
God, look at that. Queen of Pentacles. That would be
yeah, I feel like she's gonna, because even Elizabeth Warren a month ago said, hey, we need to just talk about the economy. We need to put away social issues. We just need to talk about prices. And I feel like she's gonna be like a breath of fresh air.
and also fight back and also
Oh,
fight back.
Five of Wands. Okay, so a little bit of Gavin Newsom, that kind of pushback.
Yeah, I think the economy, well, yes, I mean, it
Yeah, the
makes sense
economy.
about
Yes.
the economy. All right. And then, well, let's just do one for fun, one card on the UFO, just for
Yeah, if
fun.
it's gonna be disclosed or not.
Yeah,
Even
what's going to
when
be
Obama mentioned it the other day too, it was just so,
UFOs? It's just so not his kind of topic. That's where
yeah.
I feel so weird about it. Like, it's just. an opportunity for him. Trump and UFOs. Trump and UFOs. Ten of Swords. Um,
Interesting.
so it might, I don't know how to interpret
If
that.
it backfires?
No, I mean, Ten of Swords, end of a cycle, beginning of a new
Yeah,
cycle.
yeah.
So it might be kind of a new era opening
Hmm. Hmm.
as far as UAPs. One more card. Four of Wands, like the establishment, like maybe the actual recognition that they are.
Yeah. Or they could stop him last minute. Like you could be feeling energy as he's thinking about doing it. And then he stopped last minute. Because even Obama, when he did that interview with Brian, he said yes in a way. And then he said something like, but I haven't seen the files myself, or I haven't visited Area 51. And then he took a sip of his coffee. So there was a sense with that interview that yes, he knows, but he's kept away from it. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that same thing with Trump, the Four of Wands, set Ten of Swords. He knows, but he's sort of kept away from it.
Well, I think it's controversial, and that's why the Four of Wands, the establishment in a way, four, always the four legs of a chair. And so it cannot rock the boat too much. It could simply be a mention. It could
Yeah,
simply be,
just enough to get people on the internet to go crazy. Yeah.
we'll see. Will you watch live?
I actually do watch it. I like it, and I know some folks are like, "How can you watch Trump?" But I think what he says is interesting. What he doesn't say is interesting. Also, watching it without the sound and just feeling his energy, because if you psychically want to just feel that, that's a good way to just go, "Oh, is he healthy? Is his circulatory?" That's so I will do that for research purposes. But I will also listen to the rebuttal. I will listen to Abigail's rebuttal for sure. Let me go back into this. So the next thing we have is Iran and the stock market. And I have some cool things about the stock market that I wanted to share as well. So Iran. So you in another video, I think you either was with Linda or one of your other collabs mentioned that you saw a strike happening in Iran, but you saw it happening in March.
Mhm.
And my hits is I actually don't see any strike. I think it gets really built up and really loud and puff chests on both sides, but I actually see Iran capitulating, and I do see a regime change. That's kind of my hit. But a lot of readers are saying maybe a strike will happen soon. But right now, the Islamic culture is going, or the Muslim religion is going through Ramadan.
Fasting,
Yeah,
fasting.
fasting. And it's going to end March 19th. I know some folks were saying, hey, he might strike after the Olympics or something like that, or, before the State of the Union. Ramadan is so sacred. You don't, to strike before or during Ramadan, to strike during Ramadan is just blasphemous. And so,
Blasphemous. And so,
so there's a bit of an echo. So I think, Nath, if your hit is in March, it will likely happen the second part of March because of Ramadan.
and isn't that interesting? Correct me if I'm wrong, but the end of the Mercury retrograde is actually right at that time too.
Yes, March 21st. Yes. A couple days after the end of Ramadan. Yeah. So there you go.
It-
Yeah, astrology's backing you up as well. Do you still see that Iran will be striked? Or what type of strike do you see?
well, this is where logic and intuition come from different energies because the logic says that he shouldn't do this. What a mess if he does it. This makes absolutely no sense. But it's like in a reading, you have to put the logic aside and focus on what you feel. Do it. Um, I feel that the energy I feel is gonna do it to help Israel because of the
Mhm.
pressure of Netanyahu.
Yeah. And Netanyahu has an election cycle this year. And so him being a war president just helps his numbers. It boosts. It's a natural thing across different cultures and different governments. So very interesting.
It might change the narrative until people are tired of talking about UFOs.
Maybe that's what Netanyahu needs to do. He needs to bring up the UFOs, and then he could be reelected. Okay, the other one we want to talk about is the economy. And I want to talk about, so folks, whenever you visit us, Nathe and I will always cover the economy. That is something I'm passionate about. That's something Nathe is passionate about. So we always make sure to talk about it when we do collab. And so when it comes to the economy, a couple things happened in the past month. The past 24 hours, there is some very interesting things with the economy. I believe the stock market is down 2% from where it was yesterday. And that has to do with the tariffs. I can show you, Guardian News is actually doing a whole thing right now about it, about how the stock market's kind of going up and down with it. And so, oh, I can't find it right now. So it's down 2% because when the Supreme Court case was announced on Friday, um, Europe's stock market was open but was closing, and that's favorable to find out the tariffs are struck down was favorable for the European stock market. And then a couple of hours later, the European stock market closed, and then Trump announced his 10% tariffs. And then over the weekend, he announced his 15% tariffs. And then this Monday, the stock market in Europe opened and it went down. The US dollar went down. US futures went down, and I believe as of right now, I think we have 2 more hours before the stock market closes. It's down 2% of where it was on Friday. And so I feel like also his speech tomorrow will be covering the economy. I think we're going to see that kind of Pam Bondi action of like the stock market is a record high. He's going to be saying a lot of that. And so one other thing too is when we were last talking, when we covered our February show, we talked about this jobs report that was delayed, and it was going to cover January's numbers, and it was also going to cover the last 3 quarters of 2025 in terms of corporate earnings. And the numbers came out, and it looked very auspicious. It actually looked much better than what they were predicting. But at the same time, Europe released their report and their numbers, and they weren't good. And so it's
No.
an interesting tale of two cities, so to speak, of that. And I want to just share certain things. A lot of German companies are expecting that there will be job cuts as 2026 moves on. We're seeing UK has record high unemployment numbers. And this is not just related to the tariffs. Yeah, I think more than a third of UK employers are expecting to cut or stop hiring as a whole. And so it's interesting. I think we're having a point where maybe even in the US, we can't trust our own numbers. We can't trust our own things. And so I say, folks, maybe look at European numbers too, to kind of gauge when they are, quote unquote, what is the expression? Peeing on your leg and telling you it's raining when they are telling you the economy is much better than it actually is. And then another thing I want to say, and I'm curious about your thoughts about the economy, is we're in an economy called the K-shaped economy. Are you familiar with this? The K-shaped? Nath, are you familiar with the K-shaped economy?
No.
Oh, oh, you're not. Okay, okay. Sorry. For some reason my computer was. Um, so the K-shaped economy is basically where the rich get richer and the poor get poor. It's kind of like a Robin Hood type of thing. And basically, people who make very little are struggling, or who are middle class or lower class, make very little right now. And they're struggling paycheck to paycheck, paying for their foods. But people that are more wealthy, especially people who have their money in the stock market, are actually having record highs. And so luxury handbags are having record sales right now. I know in COVID, this dynamic happened, and I had some clients that were not astrology clients when I was just working my R&D in tech. We had some users we focused on that were very wealthy, and they were buying, diamonds and paintings, and they were having a boom financially when the rest of us were really struggling. And so it's interesting because I think Trump gauges these people and checks in with them to get a sense of if the economy is doing well. Well, your 401k is record high. You're buying another yacht, you're buying another vacation house. But then these folks are doing record low, because, they're not able to put food on their table, or they're having to cut medication and their prescription drugs because they're not able to pay for it, or not send their kids to college. And so that's the dynamic we're in. And that's also a blindness that Trump has and people around Trump because of this K-shaped economy. So I'm curious about you, about what's your read on the economy? What's your read about the stock market that just dropped 2% the past 24 hours? What are you sensing?
I agree with the K-shaped economy. I mean, my view is that people that were doing really well during COVID are doing better, and people who struggle are doing worse. So it,
Right.
that's how I see it. Um, the job report, like previous job reports, will be reevaluated down significantly. And so, well, the truth is they are being reevaluated, and it will be down, not up, certainly. Um, as far as jobs, I think it's going to be still very hard. Like, yes, I mean, February is particularly bad. I still feel like we read before that there's going to be an improvement, but this is a slow improvement. This is not a rapid improvement. Stock market, I've I've told you and the viewers and clients, I'm not reading on short time stock market cycle this year because it's going to be up, down, up, down, up, down constantly. And so we're wasting our time trying to, in my view, reading
Yeah.
that because it's superficial, it's manipulated, it's unreadable in my view because and it has been like that since the beginning of the year, up, down, up, down, up, down,
Yep.
because of what's happening in the decisions with the economy, the tariffs, everything. And so I still feel though that at the end of the year, the stock market will be higher than what it was at the beginning of the year.
Mm.
But if you are day trading, I can't help you because
Yep.
every day is just. And also an area that I'm not looking at, but I'm hearing and feeling, it's Bitcoin, and I'm hearing like there's stress around Bitcoin, and I can see that continuing.
Yeah, I think it dropped 5% in the past 24 hours, the Bitcoin. So, um, yeah, I think people are looking at the stock market. They're looking at gold. The price of gold, I think, went up 200% in the past 2 years or something, and then it's going
Oh,
down. Yeah, the metals are, yeah, and so there's a lot of variables in terms of what do you trust, where do you put your money, where do you see things are. And when we met last month, when we talked about February's astrology, we had pulled cards on this, and we had seen February and March is basically the bottom of wherever this is, and then we slowly crawl up. April, May, June onward, and you had a lot of members put questions about jobs and job searches, and you saw that trajectory too. Then it's just a couple months, and things start to turn as well. So,
be better. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean it's challenging. I feel very sorry for people looking for a job for months, sometimes years, and qualified people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when they had released those numbers, they basically said 2025 had no growth in terms of the US market. The amount of professional jobs that were lost and gained were about 1,000. And so basically we had no growth in 2025. And people felt it. You felt it in terms of, yeah, interviewing for jobs, trying to launch a business, those were very, very real. Um, okay, so moving on to what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cover the astrology and then we'll end on Nancy Guthrie and we'll end on the Oscars. So we'll have a sense of that. Or actually let's do Nancy Guthrie actually first and then we'll end on the Oscars. What is your hits with that? So because we're now in like week 3 and it's feeling like the case is getting cold in terms of the interest. And actually yesterday the police of Pima County announced all the media, all the YouTube people that were on the street, they asked them to leave. And so they did an ordinance to leave the whole neighborhood and street. And so they're basically kicking out these YouTube reporters, the Brian Eaton and other YouTube, tornado chasers type of thing. But what are you seeing with Nancy Guthrie? Oh, one other thing too. They are now employing drones. So drones, the flying things, and they're putting Bluetooth sniffers on it. So a Bluetooth sniffer is a technology. It's kind of really small, kind of looks like a lipstick, kind of or a lip gloss. It's a little device, and it's got a little antenna on it. And what it does, if it's within 15 feet of a Bluetooth, it will pull the IP information. And so the IP of her pacemaker is very unique. And so
Ah,
they're going to put these Bluetooths on it and they're just going to fly it in certain areas to recover if they're looking for like a hidden body or something like that. Do you remember a year ago when there were drones following in the New England area because they were looking
mhm.
for nuclear material? It's kind of like that. And so they're hoping that potentially, if they have a clue to look in certain areas, they can employ like, 50 drones to fly over an area, each with a Bluetooth sniffer, and they can pick up on our pacemaker. So there's some hope, folks. It's going to take a little bit longer, but they could potentially do that. But what are you feeling with Nancy Guthrie?
I don't have a lot that I'm picking on. I definitely sadly feel that she's crossed, you know. Um, I get this sense like there's something about money that I can't really put my finger on, but there's
Mhm.
something about money, and I feel that she will be found.
Yeah, yeah, I do feel she will be found. I feel, yeah.
I really all I got. I got also that there's someone from connected to the family being involved.
Yeah, I feel it's like someone that like came over and did maintenance or something. Like someone who had kind of, if it's not at her house, it could be the neighborhood. Like I feel like someone was looking at who the people were easy marks. And I honestly feel this is kind of like a burglary gone wrong. I feel like they were not intending to abduct her. I think it was more of a theft situation. They did have a gun on them, so they were expected to confront someone. Um, but I think it's something like that. And I think there's more than one. I know we saw one person on the camera, but I do believe more than one person's involved, like a team. Because in the LA area, I'm not in the LA area, but in the LA area, the past few years, there have been these team of robberies in these rich areas where like three people will be completely masked with COVID and they'll target rich neighborhoods and they'll quickly run in and seize things like necklaces and purses and stuff. And there's a certain element, it's not all of them, but there's a certain element of people hiring people to do this because they have debts, because then you can do a tax write-off. And so they're able to, yes, I know. For folks who are familiar with the reality TV show world, there's a couple people that have been accused of doing this. And so it's a very common thing that happens in LA of like three people teams quickly running in, stealing bags, stealing jewelry, really things you can just fence really quickly and then running out. And so it's not surprising that so that operation happened in Tucson as well. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Um, we'll have to wait and see. I feel like we might. I don't know why. While we were talking, I could see maybe something coming up during that retrograde timing.
Mm.
Those 3 4 weeks. I don't know why.
Yeah, and she's also very religious, so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe she is helping on her side maybe before Easter, like trying to
Yeah.
create closure or illumination. So that matches with the Mercury retrograde as well. Okay. I'm going to go into the astrology of it all. Folks, I'm going to do a lighter touch on astrology because we've covered so many topics today. I'll go a little bit deeper. I have a show with Kevin tomorrow, so we'll go into it a little bit more deeper. But for March, I would say the main vibe of March is a lot more chill than February, and it's a lot more chill than January. January was a lot of change, but March is it slowly starts to get more busier. It slowly starts to have more forward momentum, and that's because we have this lunar eclipse that's occurring March 3rd. But this lunar eclipse isn't so intense because it's actually asking us to let go and just surrender to God. There's something about let go and let God. So there's something really beautiful with it. I like this type of eclipse. Sign me up for this type of eclipse. But there's something about letting go and surrendering. So that's a bit more tranquil than another type of eclipse. We also are starting to have spring equinox. There's energy building. We're also having two planets go direct. Jupiter and Mercury will go direct in the month of March, but they will also loosely trine each other. Oh, so there's a bit of an echo. Okay, good. It corrected. And so there's a lot of, so the March starts slower, but then as we move through March, the momentum picks up. You're starting to, run and kind of start to pick up your pace. That's one dominant energy of March. The other dominant energy of March is Venus is doing really cool things all throughout the month of March. So Libra placements, Taurus placements. If you're a Taurus sun, Taurus moon, you're going to feel impacted by that. Oh, there you go. Pisces placements, Aries placements will also feel it as well. But there's a lot of shifts and breakthroughs of relationships, of money, of values. So if you're in a relationship that isn't like you're kind of on the fence, like do we stay, do we go? There's a sense that you're going to get more clarity one way or the other in terms of that relationship. Also with finances, this is a great time to perhaps budget, to think about your future, to plan for the year. There's just a lot of wind in your sails when it comes to thinking about these Venus qualities. And that's the month of March. Let me go into the actual month. These are like the two main important events. The first one is this lunar eclipse in Virgo, which is about letting go and letting God. The second one is this new moon in Pisces, and other planets are really helping out and doing cool things at the same time. So there's a little oomph in terms of the energies here. And then what we see here is a lot of planets go direct. So you have this forward momentum, you're moving forward. You're seeing Venus go into Aries, the Sun goes into Aries, Mercury goes direct, Jupiter goes direct. So you're starting to feel things like picking up the pace. And then all of March, Venus is doing some really cool things. And so there's something, folks with Venus placements, folks with Venus in Aries placements in particular, very positive breakthroughs, very positive, like things kind of work out in terms of that. I'm not going to go super into the lunar eclipse because I want to be respect. We went a little bit over today. So folks, just pause the screen and just read this on the right in terms of how to relate to it. This is a very this lunar eclipse is working for you and not against you. There's something really about asking you to let go, to surrender, to drop the ticker tape in your mind of thoughts and just be with the stillness, be with the with not knowing, with things being a little bit rough or unresolved. And then we have the new moon in Pisces, which continues the energy that happens with the lunar eclipse. It basically integrates and closes the eclipse season, but this one also has that symmetry of the lunar eclipse in Virgo about um, letting go and letting God, like surrendering to God. There's something about stillness, peace, the art of doing nothing. Um, there's really positive placements with sextiling of Uranus, so new breakthroughs are going to happen around that. And I wouldn't be surprised, folks, your psychic abilities or your spirituality will be thinner. The veil will be thinner that time. So a great time to pull tarot, a great time to book readings with Nathe or other readers. You're going to be living in the multitudes as opposed to putting everything in a neat box with this particular new moon. And I just want to say the eclipse here for Trump on March 3rd is not as great. And there's something with his mind, Mercury, his thoughts. There's something about it's going to be hard for him to say the right word. His mind might do more erratic Trump posts. And then when we go to this new moon, it's a lot gentler for him. There's something like a new plan hatching for him this March 18th in terms of a direction he wants to move into and expanding his perspective. But yeah, folks, that is kind of what I have for the astrology. One thing, Nathe, I wanted you to pull cards on this lunar eclipse here in terms of what do you feel is the lesson or impact to the collective? Like what should we expect to see?
At the individual level or for
The
current events?
collective. I mean, I think about the solar eclipse we just had, Andrew was arrested and I think multiple people passed. We had a lot of actors and actresses pass around that time too. And so I'm curious, what we also saw the stock market, the tariff issue with the Supreme Court. And so, yeah, I'm curious what you're seeing here.
I think the first sword combined with the temperance, those two cards really tie into healing and health.
Yeah, very
So
much
it
so.
um the need to take care of oneself. So I would say that maybe someone in the public eye needed to need some sort of health support or hospital or care or yeah. There's something about health.
Hmm, interesting.
But
And
it's not it's not a health accident, it's a health care.
hmm,
You see, in the sense of someone needing care, but they're not dying. It's not necessarily a surgery. It's just like they are in need of care.
Hmm.
It's a bit gentle, but
Hmm.
it's yet some sort of like like if I were talking to this person, you really, really need some rest.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that matches the Virgo lunar eclipse, but also this new moon in Pisces. So, folks, there is a lesson here, the first part of March, of resting, of
Mm.
tending to yourself. This is more like, how there's an expression of healthcare is not healthcare, it's sick care. You only go to healthcare when you're really sick. And so I see what you're seeing is just you're tending to yourself now before the wheels go off the cart, just taking care of yourself.
And there's something about sleeping.
Yeah, interesting. Oh, do you think
Sleeping.
you might fall asleep more in a meeting or something?
I don't know if it's how would we tell? He sleeps all the time. So
I know, we've been used to it. And maybe if he sleeps and snores, that would be the shocking thing for us now. We're not, goodness gracious. If anyone did that in a corporate environment, they would no longer have that role. It would just be
there
so
was a report, I have to say, of during the Board of Peace, one of the representatives of a country near him felt so uncomfortable with him, his behavior, maybe the odor, the
a lot of
smell that
people have reported the odor. Yes.
he had to get to the bathroom and throw up. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Goodness gracious. What is this repellent that he's wearing? Let's up the dose of it. Oh my goodness. He would love Zoom calls then. He's like, why do we have to be in person? Let's all meet on Zoom. One other thing I want us to end on, just something lighter, folks, is the Oscars. And we just had the BAFTAs yesterday, and there were some shocks actually in terms of what won. And so, Nate, I want you to read on two different categories. I want you to read on Best Picture. And folks, again, this is all for entertainment purposes only. We're just playing around here. But the three contenders for Best Picture are Sinners, Hammett, and One Battle After the Under. So I'm curious if you want to pull a card for each of them in terms of what you will feel will win Best Picture, and then we'll do Best Actor because those are the two contentious categories right now where people are like on the edge of their seat in terms of who will win it.
And the least I can say is I'm biased since I don't know anything about any of these. You have the most unbiased person here. Okay, so in other words, I don't really care. Okay, so let's have a look. How will Sinners do?
Mhm.
And when is the show? I don't
Sinners is a film. It's like
And when is the
like a
awards?
vampire film type of thing. Yeah.
I was asking when is the awards show?
Oh, it's March 19th. So it's in March. So it's
Oh,
going to happen in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah.
okay. So we'll have to remember. Okay, how will the movie Sinners do in the Academy Awards mid-March? I would say it's looking good. We'll have to
Ooh,
look at
okay.
the other one, but I would say
Okay.
it's looking good.
Okay. And then
Uh,
Hammett and then One
Amnet,
Bad After the other. Yeah.
Amnet.
Hammett's another one.
How will Amnet do in the Academy Awards?
And I've watched all three of these. They're all unique in their own outright.
I'm not feeling it.
Okay. Okay. And then the last one, One Battle After Another.
And then you'll tell me which one is favorite so I know where I stand. One battle after another. Where is
Yeah.
that movie? Well, Academy Awards, one battle after another. Academy Awards, one battle after another. How it's that gonna go? I feel like Sinners was the one that I feel is the
Okay.
most likely to
How
win.
funny.
Is it favorite?
They're all three kind of torn. So
Oh,
it's kind of neck and neck with all three.
okay.
So I can't say one of them is coming out. I would say One Battle After Another and Hammett are more of a lead, but just by a little bit. And Sinners is kind of nipping at their heels. So Best Actor, the three that people are really comparing are Michael B. Jordan, Timothy Chalamet, and Leonardo DiCaprio. And yeah, there's right now Timothy Chalamet is getting a lot of attention, but we don't know in terms of who will win. They're kind of all contenders in terms of the top three.
Okay. So who will win Best Actors? What are the chances for Michael B. Jordan?
Mm.
And that's not Michael Jordan, okay.
No, that's
So
not the athletic. Like, wow, he is such a interesting retirement period if he's up for an Oscar. He can do it all.
okay, it's not looking too bad.
Okay.
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 Timothée Chalamet.
Yeah, Timothy Chalamet. Yeah, he's having a lot of press on him. And sometimes that can backfire because you have a lot of press on you.
I would say it's looking a bit better than Michael
Okay.
B. Jordan. And then Leonardo DiCaprio.
Leonardo DiCaprio, yeah. You know, you actually might do Wagner as well. He's actually gaining more of a cult following right now. So we could do Leo and Wagner afterwards.
It's looking good for Leonardo.
Okay. So he's the front runner so far. And then the last one, Wagner Mora.
Wagner Mora. Will Wagner
Mhm.
Mora? No.
No. Okay. Leonardo DiCaprio. Okay, here we go then. Well, thank you, Nathe, for entertaining my whimsy there. Folks, we tried a couple new things today just to see if we like it. So please give in the comments if you like the intro in the beginning where we listed topics, or if you like the Oscars, you didn't. We love to just kind of change it up occasionally and just see what works. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for visiting me, Ness, and we'll see each other next month.
Yes. Well, bye everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.